It's that time already. We are rapidly approaching week 2 of the NFL season. Our 6-pack of picks, including a massive Thursday nighter, Packers hosting the Commanders on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us. Make sure you're all subbed up. And let's jump into this because we've got a phenomenal football game to start the Week 2 slate. Just a fantastic slate of games in Week 1. Can Week 2 live up? I think it's going to be a really good one to start it off. And I think the biggest thing to remember about all this, and I've been thinking about it for the last few days. We talked a little bit about it, but before we start any of this, I just want to talk about, and by the way, we weren't great on our picks in Week 1.
No, we were not.
Shout out to all those keeping track of our picks, keeping us honest. Week 1 can be weird. It can be extended preseason in a lot of ways. And just like how we talked about early in football games, Matt, you think you know how the game's going to go in the first half. In the second half, it just completely flips and it's completely different. It's what makes the sport a lot of fun and, comebacks and it's
Bears Vikings or,
right. Yeah. And it's the nature of the sport. It's the same thing that happens with, Week 1. There's some hot player to pick up on the waiver wire because they had 2 touchdowns in Week 1. He doesn't score again the rest of the year. Right. Some team looks good in Week 1 and then all of a sudden they come back down to, remember the Saints scored 40 points in Week 1 last year, right?
The first 2 weeks they went insane, and then they
fell off a cliff and they were awful. So that's something to remember. We don't want to overrate what we saw in Week 1, but we have to learn lessons from what we saw from some of these teams. And it's going to be, I think, fun to go through this and what did we believe from Week 1 and what are we still curious about and maybe don't quite believe what they showed us on tape from Week 1 of the NFL slate. But I'm a believer in both these football teams on Thursday night. It is the Washington Commanders visiting the Green Bay Packers, and it's going to be a lot of fun to kick this off. How do you see this one, and who do you take in a game where the Packers, and I think rightfully so, the Packers are favored at home by 3.5?
Yeah, I think it's a good line. First short week of the year, I think that's tough on teams, both teams, but especially the road team. Going to be a brutal place to play. I mean, I think we know that the Packer fans are going to be really psyched up for their team, as they should be. I think they have a case to be maybe even the best team in the league. But I was impressed with Washington. I think their O-line is really in a good spot right now, too. And I think they can handle Parsons. And those other guys played well, too. Van Ness and Gary. I think there's a ripple effect to adding Parsons. And the defense as a whole, especially the front seven, is pretty solid. But I expect a lot of points. I'm expecting a really fun game. Strangely, the Packers extended Christian Watson today. I didn't see that coming. I mean, it seems odd to me.
Yeah, it does seem odd to me as well. And I guess that's part of why. Well, obviously, he's had the injuries, which is the tough part. But they've
him as we speak.
They've had an extra wide receiver, and I thought, man, there's too many teams, and teams want a wide receiver. Couldn't you go trade for somebody? And I thought, well, Christian Watson's not going to be around for long, and they know that. So they don't want to get rid of one of these young players because they might need all the rest of them. And that's the group they want to roll with, Wicks and Reed and Golden and Dobbs. And they still feel like they have one more because there's so many mouths to feed. And you really couldn't get a huge indication on who's going to be the leading guy. And maybe that's how they want it with the wide receivers. But that was with the idea that Watson's not going to be around, but they like him. And they're going to keep him around at least 1 year longer, and they think he's worth that. So it makes it even more
13 million extra,
Yeah, that's a pretty good amount to want to keep him for one more year. And I guess that makes a lot of sense for him to not go into free agency as banged up. Hopefully he can put a full season together before he hits free agency. But I don't know. They too many mouths to feed. It's more selfish than anything. I guess for them, they're like, whatever, we'd rather have all these guys than a 5th round pick or 4th round pick, whatever you're going to send us for one of these players. But selfishly, I'd like to know who to have on my fantasy roster and, help out one of these other teams with an extra wide receiver, will you?
Yeah, I had a good conversation with Marcus Mosher today on Locked On Dynasty talking about like rookie wide receivers value, Ibuka and all those guys. And we were talking about Golden, and it's like, well, I guess next year it'll be Watson, Golden, and Reed as your 3 receiver set. Kraft is the tight end, but who's to say, and I'm not sure who the best of that group is even, I mean, it's a good problem to have. Just give me Jordan Love, I guess.
I mean, yeah, come on, Gutekunst. Let you just traded for a guy. You could use a draft pick. Let somebody else have like Dobbs or Dontavian Wicks. Come on, you don't need them, right?
Both our teams could use them.
That's why. Yeah. The Steelers and Niners. By the way, Steelers and Niners games. We've seen a lot of these teams. We know a lot more about them earlier in the week, so they're going to be on our 6-pack today. And there's a ton of injury news with the San Francisco 49ers. I think we got to break down as well on today's pod. But Packers, Commanders, Packers favored by 3.5 at home. I'm going to take the Packers and give up those points. Home environment for the Packers. You mentioned it. It's the first short week of the season. I'm sure there was a lot of soft tissue and cramps and stuff for teams. It's probably even more difficult early in the season in a lot of ways, just because you're not ramped up to your normal amount of snaps. The Parsons thing, though, he was already playing on a limited amount of snaps in week 1 and then the short week. And, he did have the back. So I would imagine he's still limited. So we're not going to quite see probably the full complement of Micah Parsons. We don't have probably to wait for week 3 and then have the mini buy there for him to then be like, okay, now he's the every snap guy for the Green Bay Packers. But you could still feel his presence when he was on the field, and just a freak of nature. And guess what? There's no Penei Sewell to block him for the Commanders. So they can utilize him in those key situations when they need to. I like Green Bay in this one, top to bottom. I like the roster better, but Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, you can never count them out. 3.5. I'm still taking the Packers, giving up the points.
I am too, but I don't feel great about it because I think that half could come back to bite us. Because I think this is going to be a pretty much a back and forth game. 2 good quarterbacks, two quarterbacks. I think their best football is ahead of them still. A lot around them. Boy, we saw a lot of Deebo Samuel in week 1. I'm wondering if McLaurin's role is going to grow a little bit too. I wish this was 2.5, but I will take Green Bay at home.
I would absolutely agree. I wish it was 2.5. Krosky Merritt looked like the real deal. 10 carries, 82 yards in the score. Jaden Daniels looked really good in week 1. You mentioned Deebo looked like, people were talking about Deebo looking thick in the offseason. He's just going to be a thick guy. That's
right.
Like, stop trying to make him lose weight. He looked good with the ball in his hands, had the touchdown, 7 catches for 77 yards, a little flex after he scored as well. So good on good here on Thursday night. It's going to be fun.
Oh, I think it's a great matchup. No doubt.
Moving on to, talk to me about the Pittsburgh Steelers after 1 week of the NFL season. And we both have seen a lot of these teams because the 49ers just played the Seattle Seahawks. So I got a good look at the Seahawks. It's the Steelers at home hosting the 0-1 Seahawks, the 1-0 Steelers. Pittsburgh at home favored by 2.5 points here. I really like the Seahawks defense, specifically their run defense.
Me too.
And so that's going to put Rodgers in those third down situations. Rodgers seemed to be up to that challenge in week 1. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Steelers to win, but not cover. Close game. I don't think this is going to be a barn burner like Steelers Jets. What's that?
Take the under?
I think so. I think that's a bit of a mirage. I think the Steeler D is a lot better than they showed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Pittsburgh's running game is very good, and I don't think that they're going to do a lot against Seattle in general. I mean, I think this is going to be kind of a slugfest. I just saw this stat. I think it might interest you as a West Coast guy. Seahawks are 19-4 in Sunday 1 p.m. road games since 2018. That's the best in the league. You would think it's like the Steelers or Patriots or Seahawks on the road at 1 o'clock. They're phenomenal. I know that used to be a Pete Carroll thing, but they were 7-1 on the road last year.
Interesting. Early game, 10 a.m. on the West Coast clock.
Yeah, I don't know why Seattle's so good at those, but they have been.
That's interesting.
They were. I think that the Seahawks defense is exceptional, though, and Steelers have some protection problems. They definitely have some running game problems. I don't know that Metcalf's going to do a ton against that secondary against his old team either. So I think it's going to be a slugfest. But the more I watch Seattle's offense, the more I worry about it too. Their O-line is still not very good. And I think Cam Hayward and the guys play a lot better than they did in week 1.
There were a lot of hopes for their offensive line. It didn't look amazing in week 1. By the way, it is the lowest over under 39.5.
Is it?
And still, I'd probably go under. Just the more we even talk about it, a defensive battle here. Again, we talked about the Saints last year. Clint Kubiak, he's not proven that he's an NFL offensive coordinator yet.
Agreed.
And they had plenty of opportunities last week. My question for you: Who's covering Jackson Smith?
Pretty washed too.
Who's covering Jackson Smith and Jigba? Because that was their entire offense in week 1.
Well, I'm not sure if Porter's going to play, but I think Ramsey will probably draw that aside. I mean, he's the slot. So Kupp plays a ton of slot. Smith and Jigba played outside a little more than usual last week, from what I read. Between Slay, the corners are good enough they can handle it, but I think you'll see a lot of Ramsey, and that has to be like priority number 1 is don't let JSN beat you, because he was the entire offense. So we'll see.
One of our stock downs too last week that we didn't get to was Kenneth Walker. It looks like Charbonnet was the better back in week 1, but I don't know that either one of these teams is going to run the football, which means a lot of third downs. And it could be one of those ugly battles, which makes me want to take the points, which leads me to the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm going to take the points, but I do think Pittsburgh wins the home opener.
Seahawks got to show something on offense.
Yeah, there's just not much there. I don't think Kupp's particularly good. The line's not particularly good. I'm not sold on Darnold. He doesn't handle pressure very well, and I'm sure he'll be under a lot of it,
And again, it's one of those things where what do you believe from week 1? Was it a 49ers defense and Robert Saleh really making the difference and stifling that offense? Or is there a problem with the Seahawks offense? But they couldn't get anything going except for, targeting a rookie on the 49ers as much as possible with Jackson Smith and Jigba.
22 minutes of time of possession for Seattle.
Not good.
Couldn't move the ball at all.
Next, we've got a bunch of 49ers injuries as they travel to New Orleans. It's a good week to have a weird roster, because I am still not a fan of what's going on with the New Orleans Saints this season. Buffalo at New York Jets, Giants, Dallas, NFC East matchup, and a lot of notes with what's going on in Cleveland. Judkins in town, what to make of their running back situation at the Baltimore Ravens. Coming up in today's Peacock and Williamson 6-pack. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL season, it is finally upon us, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff in week 2 with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The thing to love about FanDuel is how it fits how you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds in a same game. And how about $300 extra to bet across the app, talking about weekly lines that are up not only in week 2, but all the way through week 18 for your favorite teams and matchups, tons of props. So get involved. And if you win your first $5 bet, you can get $300 in bonus bets. So you're ready to play. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. When the whistle blows on a new repair, you're kicking off a new repair. It's just like a football game, and you've got to be prepared and you've got to move forward. And you could do that with Supply House, because if you order today, you can see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Be ready for when that whistle opens on a new repair. Over 280,000 parts, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery, which is a game changer, and a part-finding tool. 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs when every detail matters. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your order. That's SHNFL5 at supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. So it's always interesting with the San Francisco 49ers, and I do cover the 49ers on Locked On 49ers Daily, amongst other places, and it's a fun team to cover because it's always weird, and it just keeps getting weirder for the 49ers. After week 1, they decide, you know what, we had this kicker competition in camp. Maybe we got it wrong. and we're just going to cut Jake Moody. So third round kicker, which rarely happens, Jake Moody has now been cut, and they didn't sign Greg Joseph, who was in camp. They went and signed Eddie Pinheiro, who has one of the better, conversion rates and field goal percentages throughout his career, which is probably why the 49ers are like, look, I don't care how big your leg is. Can you make a 35-yard field goal? We just need
just give me the basics. Yeah.
So Eddie Pinheiro's in at kicker for the 49ers. George Kittle goes to IR, so he's going to miss week 2 through 5 at least with a hamstring injury, which is unfortunate. You talk about soft tissue and, extended training camp and preseason for some teams, and Niners got bit with that one. And now Brock Purdy comes up with an injury. He played through the rest of the game, but he has a shoulder and a toe, and they're kind of being hush-hush on exactly what those injuries are, but questionable right now, which means it might be Mac Jones playing quarterback against the New Orleans Saints. I say luckily playing the New Orleans Saints is still a professional football team. Mm-hmm. And the 49ers already leaned so heavily into Christian McCaffrey, 31 touches for McCaffrey in week 1 against the Seahawks. That's unsustainable to give Christian McCaffrey and his injury history 517 touches, which is not for this season, right? So, but where else are you going to, it's Pearsall and it's McCaffrey for the 49ers offense. And it might be Mac Jones delivering the football. Is that enough against the New Orleans Saints? It's just a really odd team, and it's always something with the 49ers.
I'm sure, yeah.
What a weird football team to cover. I love it, to be honest with you. But the 49ers are still favored by 4.5 points on the road at the Saints.
I'm going to take the points for all those reasons. And I think the Saints were kind of respectable in week 1. I mean, I didn't think Rattler was terrible. I think the offense around them's okay. I think it's a little harsh to just assume they're like the worst team in the league. I'm not sure who's worse. There's not many, don't get me wrong, but a tough environment. And I just think the Niners are a little short on firepower at the moment. I don't love the game either way, though. I think 4.5 is a good number, but I'm going to say the Saints keep it close and lose.
I kind of feel that way as well. And I don't like picking the loser to cover, but I feel like that's the way you have to go with this bet. And then, the 49ers will show up and Purdy will play, and then they'll, win 31-7 or something. That
could happen, right?
At this point, tough place to play, usually on the road, back-to-back road games for the 49ers. Early game going to New Orleans. I got to take the home dog here. Mm-hmm. And, the 49ers didn't show quite enough, and now they're even more banged up going into week 2 for me to be like, okay, they can overcome everything. But, well-coached football team. Kyle Shanahan offense is going to find a way. They're probably going to run the ball okay. Cam Jordan, by the way, still going and still playing pretty well for that.
Same with Demario Davis and all those guys. They were all okay, right?
They've got some professional football players. And
they do.
Saints need to be respected in that way. So I think I'm going to take the points here, reluctantly.
I think everyone has McCaffrey ranked as like the number 1 fantasy back of the week, too. Yeah, just volume.
They even gave Brian Robinson Jr. 9 carries, and he still touched the ball 31 times, 22 carries and 9 receptions. Yeah. So
it's going to be the Pearsall and McCaffrey show.
It's going to be. Yep. I got Pearsall on a lot of teams. I got no shares of McCaffrey, though. How about the Bills and the Jets? The Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. You saw a lot of Justin Fields and the Jets, so much so that in our mailbag for tomorrow's show, some of the Steelers fans were like, oh, no, did we screw up letting Justin Fields go? That's how good he looked in week 1 for the New York Jets. Is that enough at home against the Buffalo Bills, who on the road are obviously favored? It's 6.5 points. Is that too many points to scare you off the Bills with how good Jets looked in week 1, Matt?
Maybe I'm just telling myself this to make me feel better about the Steelers' performance, but I'm very impressed with where the Jets are as an organization, how well Fields played, their young offensive line. Breece Hall looked great. Their defensive line played really well. Sauce shut down Metcalf every time he was out there. But the Bills are a different animal. And I don't know if the Jets have this great home field advantage. I expect Buffalo to steamroll their division. Maybe it starts now. I'm going to go with Buffalo and lay the points.
Sauce on
maybe Coleman. I mentioned I did that Locked On Dynasty show. We kind of awarded Keon Coleman as most stock up for Dynasty of anyone in the league after week 1.
he from a target percentage, allowing him to go after contested balls. The problem is the separation still wasn't great for Coleman. And I don't think he'll ever be that player, which is why a lot of people think that he shouldn't be an outside receiver. He should be more of a big slot, work inside a little bit. And so that could mean 0-0 separation against Sauce Gardner. So they're going to have to go another direction. If he's the player, size, length, I feel like that'd be a good matchup for the Jets.
The rest of that secondary can be had though.
Right. So maybe a big Dalton Kincaid game potentially too.
Rodgers basically just didn't throw at Sauce and attacked everybody else. And
by the way,
imagine Allen does the same.
I saw a graph. It was nearly Ben Roethlisberger-esque late career, getting the ball out short and quick for Aaron Rodgers in the
didn't throw a ball over 20 yards.
Yeah. It was graph, and Aaron Rodgers is by himself over here in the bottom left, and Dak is way over here.
It's all after the catch and efficient. I mean, they couldn't protect very well either, right?
Yeah. So anyway, obviously the Steelers aren't in this game, but Jets, Buffalo Bills. The Bills for 3 quarters didn't look amazing either.
No, they didn't. I have concerns about their defense too. I mean, if the Jets can run the ball on them and shorten this game, they should be okay with the spread.
I hate this. I'm going to take the points in the home dog. I wish I could get 7, but that's a lot of points early season. I think it's a close enough game. Home dog. I saw enough from the New York Jets. They have some talent. They have some defense.
They do. They got some dudes.
Give me the Jets and 6.5 points. Okay. Also, I don't want to pick the same outcomes as you, Matt, because I think we missed all the games last week that we both agreed on.
I think we got like 2 or 3 right.
We got 5 right.
It was a 5.
They weren't the games we agreed on. So give us a chance to get one right here.
One of us needs to separate.
Things around. I'll take the points with the home dog, New York Jets. I'm very reluctant on my 6-pack of picks today.
I don't feel confident about any of these yet.
I don't know. You think you know the league, and then week 1 happens, and you're like, I don't know anything about any of these teams.
Yeah, when our buddy sent that tweet yesterday with our records, it was like, ooh, it was kind of a shot to the nose. It was like,
how many Bears fans were tweeting at their Vikings fans friends after the first drive, like, oh, it's over. We got Caleb, we got Ben Johnson, and by the end of the game, they're like, oh man, what happened? That's what happens in the NFL. I love it. Finishing up our 6-pack next. Stay tuned. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Mazda. You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You could choose to get out there, choose your people. You could choose to go for it, like really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Matt, here we go. Let's finish up I don't know if I dropped the sounder today, our 6-pack of picks for week 2 in the NFL. And let's go to the NFC East, and we've got the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. I thought Dak played really well for what the score looks like in week 1 Thursday night. They got a little bit of extra time here and are at home against the New York Giants, and I would hoped I had seen a little bit more from that New York Giants front to just be a nightmare. It wasn't quite that in week 1, which makes me really want to take the Dallas Cowboys here. They're favored by 5.5, though. How do you feel about this line in week 2?
I just think that's too big a number. I mean, I think it's a great point getting the extra rest. I think that's helpful, and a home game. I would imagine Dallas fans are still psyched up for the home opener, or are they just down on the organization after a loss and watching Parsons go? Like, could they turn on everyone? And I did think Dak played great. Lamb had those drops. I'm kind of with you that I think the Giants are going to be a hard team to play against, starting with their defense. I hope Andrew Thomas plays this game because their O-line was a problem. I don't think it's long before we see Dart, but I think 5.5 is too big a number. I actually think this should be like 3.5.
I predict we're going to see Dart in this game. I'm taking this game Cowboys to be angry, win big. Lamb's not going to put the ball on the turf, and Dak's going to throw for 4 touchdowns.
Okay, you think they win big and cover?
I like covering
cleans up
the 5.5 points for the Dallas Cowboys at home.
Okay.
That leaves us the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. I think everyone listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube knows that the Ravens are going to be favored. They're favored by the most of any team so far this season, 11.5 points against the Cleveland Browns. So
sounds like Judkins is in New York as we speak, talking about his situation. I don't know if that means that there's because he's signed. I don't know if there's going to be a fast suspension that comes or what happens or whatever, but I'm not counting on him for much this week.
No, it's a little too early. He just signed, days ago, basically, at the start of the season. Such a weird situation with a second round pick there to not be signed as the season's starting. And then looking at, Sampson, the other rookie, Dylan Sampson, whether Judkin comes back or not soon, I think he's going to have a big part of the passing game. Yeah, he looks like a really natural fit there. And that's why they drafted him. And that's why they drafted 2 running backs. So he's going to be the passing down guy, I would imagine. And we'll see if, this decision in New York with Judkins gets fast tracked and he's on the field already, or if he, is suspended or whatever it is. Probably won't be a factor in this game, though, which I don't think would really turn the tides anyway. But just from a fantasy perspective, really liked what I saw from Dylan Sampson as a receiving running back there. And could he be more depending on what happens with the rest of the group there? Joe Flacco looked okay. Looked like classic Joe Flacco, getting the ball out quick. It wasn't great results, 290 passing yards in week 1, but a couple of picks there against the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore Ravens look like the best team I'd ever seen for 3 quarters of the football game in the opener against the Buffalo Bills. 11.5 points, though, Matt.
Wow. This early in the year, you don't see that very often. And
it is about as big a line as games get.
It is.
Yeah.
So we were just talking Browns rookies. Marcus and I did a whole segment on Fannin, the tight end, too. I mean, they designed a lot of stuff for him, too. And
he was the biggest target gainer in the offense, right? It felt like they were like, throw the ball to Harold Fannin.
Yeah, and we were talking about where he is in the dynasty world, skyrocketing up these tight end, rankings. Now, that being said, I kind of told myself watching that Sunday nighter end that I am betting on the Ravens no matter what the spread is in week 2, because I think they're going to be ferocious and embarrassed, and Henry might have 280 yards on the ground and 7 touchdowns,
and not fumble.
Yeah. I just think that you are poking the bear right now with the Ravens. I am definitely taking them. I know it's a big number, and the Browns played well.
I hate that I'm going to do this, but I'm going to take the points. And I am going to bet on not necessarily the Browns or Joe Flacco or Dylan Sampson or Harold Fannin. Harold Fannin, by the way, he was the weirdest prospect.
A weird athlete.
And it's like he gets the ball pepper. He just gets the ball. It's almost like he has a magical ability to make the offensive coordinator call his number.
Right.
The way he moves isn't like it looks like
I didn't buy in at all.
It looks like he has arthritis.
Yeah. He's duck-footed and right. He's a weird athlete.
That athletic for an undersized tight end, but he gets open, makes catches, gives you a little effort after the catch too. He's such an interesting. It makes him one of my favorite players just because he's hard to figure out. He's so unique, and you can tell who he is on the field, whether he's wearing his whatever 88 he was in camp. Now he's number 44. Just a really interesting player. But clearly the Browns like him. He got open enough.
Yeah.
He got the ball, made plays after the catch. So yeah, I'm a fan of Fannin, and
he's worth the price of admission. He's an odd player, that's for sure.
This goes back to the just the unknown aspect of the NFL. It's chaos in the NFL. These are professional football players on the Cleveland Browns. 11.5 points, disrespectful in some ways. Ravens by 10, so that means I'm taking the points.
I'm definitely taking the Ravens.
Familiar opponents again. That can always level the playing field with a division rival. Yeah. And up enough where they don't have to run up the score either. So
I didn't do
lower scoring in week 1.
Yeah, I hear you there. I didn't do preseason power ranks, but I think if I did 1 week ago, the Ravens would have been 1 and the Browns would have been 32.
You did pick the Browns in our who gets the number 1 pick draft.
Yes, so they probably would have been 32 if I did power ranks.
Yeah. So you had the number 1 pick. You picked the Browns, and I picked the Saints.
Yeah.
And I just picked both the Browns and Saints in our 6-pack.
Putting your money where about, yeah.
Love it. There's our 6-pack for week 2 of the NFL season. Let us know what you think and get involved in this week or next week's mailbag at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Drop a question or a comment on YouTube. Of course, subscribe while you're there. And Matt and I are back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.